Hey, what's up, everybody? So glad to have you guys in. Welcome into yet another episode of Crushing Fantasy Football. I am Bryce Lockridge, your host of the show. Guys, I obviously haven't posted in a while. I wanted us to get a little bit closer to the fantasy football season before I started posting. We're really just a few months away from training camp. It's amazing how fast the football season and the fantasy football season comes back around. It's a good time of year for me to start posting again. So I'm going to be getting at you guys today with my top 5 quarterback wide receiver stacks. Now, I want you guys to keep in mind that this is value contingent, right? So the number one stack that I have on my list might not necessarily be the stack that I think is going to net you the most fantasy points. And it might be. But the point is, it's value contingent, right? So the best stacks mean best stacks according to value, not just the overall amount of points they get, but the value you get out of the players based on their draft position. So I'm going to start right here with the first stack on my list, and that's Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. Now, honestly, of any stack on this list, this stack has the highest ceiling. Now, the reason it's number 5 is because, you're paying a super premium for both players, right? You're taking Jamar Chase with a first-round pick. He's probably worth a first-round pick, but still high draft capital. And then you're stacking him with Joe Burrow, who you're probably going to have to get in round 5 or 6 by the time the season starts. Couple this with the fact that Joe Burrow was super banged up all of last season. He had the calf injury in the preseason last year, and then he had another injury late in the season that obviously kept him out for the rest of the entire season and caused him to miss significant time. So will Joe Burrow be able to stay healthy this year? That's kind of the risk that we're running here, and high draft capital. But the flip side of this stack is obviously that it could literally win you your league, right? If you draft these two players and you hit on them and they stay healthy for the entirety of the season, there's a good chance you win your league. So it's still worth it based on the draft capital. And even though you have to take these guys both high and there's an injury risk, the upside is so freaking high with these two players that I would still advise drafting them. And that's why they're top 5 in my quarterback wide receiver stack list. Next player and stack on my list is Justin Fields and Russell Wilson along with George Pickens. Now, this stack is obviously a little bit tricky because we don't technically know who's going to be playing quarterback. Right now, it looks like Russell Wilson's going to be the starting quarterback, but it's still up for grabs, right? It could be Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. Now, the reason this stack is tricky is because if you want to ensure the stack, you're obviously going to have to take both quarterbacks. Now, the reason I feel like this is okay is because you can draft both quarterbacks so late. So if you're a person that likes to wait on quarterbacks and you're filling up your other positions early, you can take Justin Fields and Russell Wilson because you're getting both these players in like the way later rounds. So even though you have to take both players to make the stack work and be a sure thing, you can take the players in the later round. So it's a little bit worth the risk. And then if you watch my video yesterday, George Pickens is probably, in my opinion, the biggest steal in the draft right now because no matter which of these quarterbacks is throwing him the ball, he's going to absolutely go off this season. We know that Russell Wilson and Justin Fields can both support wide receiver ones. So if you stack them with George Pickens, it's going to net you a lot of fantasy points. And you can get the receiver and the quarterback part of this stack way later than almost any other stack on this list. So it is of extremely high value. Next stack on my list is going to be Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper. Now, some people that followed me last year and listened to me constantly talk all offseason about the Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper stack are probably laughing at me right now and being like, okay, Bryce, this stack didn't work out last season. You said it was the best stack to draft, everything like that. But if you look at Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper and where you're taking these guys in drafts, you don't have to draft Amari Cooper typically until round 4 or 5. And the great thing about this is Jameis Winston is the backup for the team. So even if Deshaun Watson doesn't work out and the stack doesn't work out in its entirety, say Deshaun Watson gets hurt again or underperforms again, if Jameis Winston steps in, we know that he can support Amari Cooper as a wide receiver 1. We've seen him in the days with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Jameis Winston can support wide receiver 1s. So the Amari Cooper side of the stack is safe no matter what. This is why this is such a valuable stack. And then you can take Deshaun Watson in the way later rounds. In underdog drafts right now, he's going as like quarterback 23. My goodness gracious, you're basically getting the guy for free. He still has tremendously high upside. Being the fact that this is an offense that could score a ton of points, Deshaun Watson has rushing upside, so he can get you a lot of rushing. He can get you rushing yardage, rushing touchdowns. The added additional weapon of Jerry Jeudy. We have a veteran now, David Njoku, who is an elite pass catcher. This team is loaded with weapons. If Deshaun Watson can return and even be a shell of what he used to be, we're talking about massive fantasy upside here with this Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper stack. Obviously, the Deshaun Watson side is a little risky. Is he ever going to be the same again? Is he going to be healthy and stay on the field? But the fact is, the Amari Cooper side of the stack is safe. And hey, you can always take Jameis Winston as like a super late round flyer, or even get him off the waiver wire in case the Deshaun Watson part doesn't work out. Next player and stack that I have here on my list is going to be Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, this stack was incredible last year, right? I mean, you can always get Jared Goff in the later rounds. You can still do it this year. The dude just got the bag. What was it, like 170 million guaranteed or something absolutely crazy? Whoever saw Jared Goff getting this kind of contract, either way he did it, he is here to stay in Detroit. They obviously love Jared Goff, and they obviously think that Jared Goff is a much better quarterback than the fantasy community and the overall community of NFL fans think Jared Goff is, right? Because, when you talk about Jared Goff, no one's talking about him as one of the elite quarterbacks of the league, but he certainly just got paid like one. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is as consistent as they come. We saw it last year. He was the wide receiver 3 in fantasy, behind only CD Lamb and Tyreek Hill. So the dude was an absolute monster. He's going to be an absolute monster again in an offense that is absolutely and utterly unstoppable. This stack is going to net you so many freaking points. It's going to win leagues. And although you have to take Amon-Ra in the first round, he's very much worth the first round pick. And you can get Jared Goff in like freaking round 12. This stack is money. Now, my favorite stack, my number one stack this season is Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson. Now, Garrett Wilson, you're either going to have to take him late round 1 or early round 2. Maybe if you get lucky enough, if you're in a grandma league, he'll slip to the middle of round 2. With that being said, I certainly think that he's worth the draft capital. We know this is one of the most talented wide receivers in the NFL. We watched him play. We've seen the talent. It's truly unbelievable. Now that he has a true wide receiver 1, watch out. That's all I have to say, because if he was able to do what he did with Zach Wilson slinging him the rock and, all these chumps that he's had at the quarterback position, Aaron Rodgers is going to make Garrett Wilson a stud. Now, I know that Aaron Rodgers is 95 years old, but he's still Aaron Rodgers, and he's still going to be by far and away the best quarterback that Garrett Wilson has ever had. This stack is going to net you so many fantasy points, it's going to win leagues. Garrett Wilson is one of the most talented wide receivers in the NFL. People don't talk about it enough because he hasn't had that mega breakout season yet. It's coming this year. Garrett Wilson's about to explode. Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback you could get in the way later rounds. So although the Garrett Wilson side of the stack is expensive, you can get Aaron Rodgers for darn near free, and he's going to net you a ton of fantasy points, especially with the added weapon in Malachi Corley, who nobody's talking about. That dude's going to make the offense better. We have an explosive Breece Hall. This offense is going to explode. I love the Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson stack. It's the best stack in fantasy. It needs to be the main stack that you're targeting in your best ball drafts and in your regular everyday redraft leagues. Thank you for coming in, guys. Catch you later.